Fred Werner. Fred Werner, Oshkosh, the high school coach at Oshkosh West for many, many years. And he was sitting together talking about old times in soccer, the way it was back in the 60s. You've lived in Oshkosh most of your life, but you were actually not born in Oshkosh.
No.
Where were you born?
I was born in Stettin, Germany. That's in Pomerania, part of Germany. It's eastern Germany, and now it's part of Poland since the border has been changed through the war situation.
So it is an area, Germany and Poland, where soccer was pretty popular,
Right.
more so than the United
Right.
States. When you came here, there was hardly any soccer.
No.
And you came to Oshkosh, so you didn't get a chance to play soccer. Your dad was also a soccer player, correct?
Right,
Yeah.
right. I came to Oshkosh on April 12th, 1952 with my mother and dad.
Uh-huh.
And we came over on a boat, on a transport ship, which really was a rough ride on the way over here. But we made it, and my grandfather had some, he was our sponsor actually.
Your granddad
My
was.
grandfather, that was my dad's dad, was our sponsor. And he had a business in Chicago, and he invested some money into land in Wisconsin on different farms. You know, he had a couple of farms. Because my grandfather did so much for my dad figured he should repay and go on a farm. My dad never ever touched a cow or anything farming in his life. You know, my mother came from a farm. But we ended up here in Oshkosh, 6 miles south of Oshkosh, on a dairy farm. And that's where soccer started for Oshkosh. On that farm, whatever was done for soccer, it started on that farm.
But when you came to Oshkosh, there was no soccer on the farm. How did that happen?
From 1948 until first part of 53, there was no soccer. Prior to 48, there were teams in the Fox Valley. In 53, the immigrants got together and they formed a team, and it was a strong team. Even though my dad at the time was middle 40s, you know, but he could score goals pretty darn good.
Yeah.
So he even set a record as far as having 38 goals in one season.
Wow.
You know.
And his name was Hans, right? Hans
Right,
Werner.
Hans Werner.
And congratulations, both Hans and you in the Wisconsin Soccer Hall of Fame.
Right. I was inducted in 1998, and my dad was inducted in 2003. So it was quite an honor for us.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, and I remember the ceremonies when he got in. So he was a good goal scorer and played for the first team. The
Right.
first team, I understand, did win the state championship one time.
I think it was in 1955 when we won the state championship.
And
See,
this was
soccer-
against teams from Milwaukee, Sheboygan.
Milwaukee, Sheboygan, Madison.
Uh-huh.
It was just like a late summer, early fall season.
Mhm.
So even though my dad was on a farm, you know, which was 24 hours work to do out there, you know, he had a lot of support from players that used to come out in the evenings and help, so we could get ahead as far as unloading hay and stuff, and he could play soccer on Sundays for the team, you know. So it was, and then Mom and me, we stayed home on the weekends and did the chores and stuff, you know.
Your dad must have been quite a player if his friends were desperate to
Right,
get him
right.
on the team and they would play.
He was, anything to do with soccer, he was 100% for it. Plus.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
But you did have mostly immigrants playing at that time on the team. Immigrants from people from Germany,
Right,
Austria,
right.
Hungary.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was people from every corner of the world, you might say, so it was an international team, but it took a little while, but within a couple of years, they were the state champion over there.
Mhm.
And then at that time, once you become a state champion, you went to Division I, you might say, in soccer, and you had to have another team. So that's when I started playing soccer here in Oshkosh. But we didn't have enough people to support two teams. So a lot of people from the first team played in 2 games, back to back.
A lot of
So it was, it was rough going, but everybody enjoyed it.
Uh-huh. But that expanded the amount of players also. Were you able to pull players from like UW Oshkosh? Because they had students coming from all over the world too. There must have been some soccer players.
Yes, there were a few people that went to the university here that played on that team. I cannot remember the names anymore, but it was a couple of people from Italy, I remember, and excellent people,
Uh-huh.
you know.
So you said the soccer started kind of on the farm. Your dad brought
Right.
his friends over,
Yeah.
and that's where the meetings were held.
The goalpost for our first field was across the old Mercy Medical Center on Menominee Park.
Uh-huh.
And that lumber all came from the farm. It was
Really?
built previously, and then on weekends, we put them on a hay rack and drove in and dug the holes and, you know,
Wow.
did our thing. But there was only one field in
So
Oshkosh.
there was no business like keeper goals out of
No,
Milwaukee
no,
that made
no,
them, yeah.
none of that stuff.
So that was those were the first goalposts in Oshkosh, but then later on, when you got involved in youth soccer, from that one field at Menominee Park, you expanded to
Oh.
all over the city. And how about those goalposts? Where did you make those too?
When Oshkosh Youth Soccer first got started, which was, the youth program actually started out in Green Meadow area, which is just outside of the
Yes,
Oshkosh
remember,
area over
yeah.
there. And they had one team out there. And then they kind of got more kids involved from the Oshkosh area. Then after a couple of years, there was more kids from the Oshkosh area. That's when we formed the Oshkosh Youth Soccer
Uh-huh.
Club over there.
And that was in the 70s. Yeah, right?
That
Late
was
70s.
in late 70s.
Mhm.
Late 79, OYSC was started,
Uh-huh.
okay? And as far as the goalpost goes, at first, our first set of goalposts was like a 6x6 steel, and which was actually illegal, you know, but we had goalposts, you know, the wooden ones, they even cut down with chainsaws at night. People would tell us about that. They heard the chainsaw and the goalposts were cut down.
Is it
So-
vandalism?
Yes.
Really?
So we sat out at night also and watched all of that going on. But the other ones, after we had the round goalposts, they were all fabricated out at the farm. Our club president, Tom Wazinski, was a steam fitter and a good welder. And between him and myself, we did all of that stuff after work every single day. That was 7 days a week. It was a job over there. They were set by us on weekends, you know, with help from the rest of the board members from OYSC. So there was a lot of support.
So there was more than just coaching the kids how to kick a ball, how to head the
Right,
ball.
right.
There was a lot of
Right.
other things involved. Now, you're talking about the 50s when the Oshkosh club played. Then later on, I understand you played in Appleton with the Fox Valley Bombers. But that was in the 60s, and as I recall, the 60s, a guy your age, my age, we were drafted. How did that affect you?
I was drafted, and then I changed my mind.
You could change your mind?
I could change my mind because after you get drafted, you come back home after 2 years, and then you have to go to meetings for 5.5 years or whatever it is. So I added another year to my enlistment. So it was 3 years that I spent in service, and for adding that extra year, I had a choice of what I wanted to be in or where I wanted to go. Well, all the relatives were still over in Germany, so I headed to Germany. But there was a lot of bad things going on. While I was in basic training and done with my second aid, there was 4 of us that were getting shots every day, and we didn't know what it was for. So come to find out, later on, after I left my company, went to the higher offices, which you had to have a permission and Army stuff. I was in the Army part of it. And it happened to be around noontime, and the big IG man came out and heard me arguing with this Secretary Staff Sergeant at the
Good
time.
for you, yeah.
And he wanted to know, well, I told him about the shots that we're getting, and nobody's telling us anything. He says, I'll get back to you by tonight. And I thought, well, you know, in service, these things ain't gonna happen. Well, it did happen. I got a letter from this, he was a colonel, as a matter of fact, letter from him to pack up that night to leave at, I think it was 10 o'clock at night, right to New York. They flew me. Ship was just about on its way out of the port over there.
Wow.
And we went to Germany. So,
You talked to the right guy.
well, after I got done talking to him, the MPs were right there, put the handcuffs on me, and I thought, boy, here we go. They're gonna throw the key away, and there I sit, you know. But everything worked out really well. I ended up in Germany. I loved it over there. I spent a lot of time with my relatives, especially on holidays and stuff, and it was just great.
And you got to play a little soccer too while you were in the military.
Well, in the city that we were stationed at was Pirmasens, Germany, that was close to the French border. Pirmasens had a Division II team that played, but within the city there was all these little clubs and stuff, and one of the little clubs, that's the one I kind of kicked the ball around with, you know, a little bit. It wasn't permanent or anything like that, but.
And then when you came back in the late '60s, then you played with the Fox Valley Bombers. You played all together back in those days. And then the Bombers kind of started to work with youth soccer. They started out in Menasha first. And Oshkosh was still, they did not have a men's
But see,
team, but
that all started also when we played with the Bombers. We ended up playing down in Milwaukee against the Bavarians.
Yeah.
And they had a field over there which was foundry scrap. You didn't even think about falling down, you know. But during the halftime of that game, they had little guys come in and have a little game within 15, 20 minutes or something. At that point in time, I says, someday we're going to get something like that in Oshkosh.
Wow.
And that got set in my mind, and we really pushed
that
for
was
the youth
a
program.
golden moment for a pioneer
Right.
in soccer, and then it
Yep.
started happening. And how many kids did you have in your Oshkosh youth program at one time?
When we first started out, it was about 150 or so, but it grew so fast, we ended up at one point in time close to 2,700 kids.
2,700.
And it was close to around 170 teams. And it took a lot of coordination between the board members, you know, and the private families, the school system, the parks department. We all kind of worked together. It wasn't that we pushed ourselves onto people. It took time, but we did
The
develop
time was
a-
right, and there was an availability of grass
Right,
areas.
right.
I know the area by, in Winnebago.
Winnebago County Park.
You kind of took that over, and there's soccer fields all over.
One of the board members' dad worked for the county, and he told him that there's space out there that you guys could put up some fields, because we were running out of fields in the city,
Yeah.
you know. And sure enough, we got 2 fields on it. And at that time, our first paint machine used to get plugged up with dandelion stuff.
Uh-huh.
That's how bad it was out there. And it was rough, and I mean, it was plowed fields actually, you know. But within time, we ended up with 18 fields out at County Park.
Wonderful, yeah.
So in total, it was 38 fields that were in the Oshkosh area over there.
And it all
They had to
happened-
be maintained. Well, the school system would take care of some of the fields, the parks would, and the county would take care of them. But now it came to striping the fields. That had to be done, and different age groups played on different days. So you had to coordinate that also. So when we first started with just a few fields, it was just a spray can and a walk behind. And then we've got a motorized sprayer. And then we finally ended up with a rider, you know. But a lot of the club board members tried the spraying part, which was not just riding this machine. There were other things to it, as
Yes.
far as mixing the paint and also cleaning the stuff up afterwards, you know, and hauling the paint machine from field to field, you know. And this was all done after people were done with working, you know, so
We were
was-
very blessed to have such a good support from the
Right.
community. You mentioned the schools. It didn't take long, maybe it did take long, but looking back, it didn't. We had kids playing youth soccer, and then the high schools, the kids wanted to play in school. And I know Nina was one of the first schools to have
Right.
varsity soccer. How did you get involved in Oshkosh soccer, high school soccer?
Harry Kelderman,
Good friend of ours.
really. Harry Kelderman gave the athletic director my name and Gunther Engelman's name to contact us if we were interested as far as starting to coach high school ball, which I accepted Oshkosh West and Gunther Engelman accepted Oshkosh North over there. But it was kind of a challenge the first couple of years because soccer was new and trying to fit in with the rest of the activities that was going on in the high school. We had our ups and downs, but we've got some good memories.
But you did have a soccer field right away, specifically for Oshkosh West?
Right.
Yeah.
We had a soccer field right outside the high school, and every time they needed the parking lots to get bigger, they took part of the field away, and so we had to move the goals, and whenever they moved the goals, which started out to be these 6x6, which OYSC donated a set of goalposts to Oshkosh West and Oshkosh North. So I told the people, whenever the school said, we're gonna move the goalposts, get a hold of me. And, well, they did it on their own. So the first set of goalposts, when they set them, the down ones were on an angle like this. I had to dig down on each side of each goalpost and pull them apart so they're straight at least for the next game. And that was quite a challenge. And my wife, our athletic director said he's got uniforms ordered, but they didn't come in, and geez, it was the night before our game. And my wife ironed on all the numbers on plain T-shirts the night before to get this game going the next day. But we had a lot of those kids on the first team. We even had a girl made the varsity.
Yeah.
3 girls tried out, and one of them made the team over there. And a lot of the kids were like from the track and from cross country and stuff like that. And a couple from footballs, and then geez, those coaches would come over. Are you recruiting? I says, hey, it was just open season to try out for soccer, you know, and that's what happened, you know. But the kids, and especially the parents, they really supported the soccer program at the school system.
That's very, very important, that you need
Yeah.
that support from parents, and
Yeah.
obviously you did have a lot of that. Now, I remember the high school soccer in Oshkosh was played in a little stadium. It was a former football stadium on Jackson Street, Schumerth Stadium.
Right.
How did that happen?
Schumerth Field is actually Harold Schumer's football field. He was one of the elite coaches in the state in the 50s, and that was his home field over there. But it was sat empty for so many years over there. But it was a bowl-like, and it was dipped down kind of like it. It was set up for football, not soccer. So there was a cinder track around the outside. The max we could get out of it, as far as width-wise goes, was 68 yards. And it was only wanted to play, with 80, and we could never have any tournaments there or anything like that, The length was okay, but the width wasn't there, But it took at least a couple of years with school board members taking trips to this field and talking about different situations, what we can do, what we can't do, and all those things, But finally, we got a hold of that field. And also, a few years later, we ended up with lights, because a lot of schools had lights, which was just great. We could play in the evenings, instead of in the afternoon. There was always trying to get the bus scheduled, with all, and being sitting empty like this for so many years, the weeds took over. So we had to kind of control the grass system over there, and we had a water wheel that I found in the storage area at the high school over there. And it took 3 passes, and each pass was anywhere between 7 and 8 hours to keep water going on it. And that meant it was my wife and me again. My wife was always with me around these soccer fields over there. Middle of the night, we'd get up, we have to swim. But then, that all took time, but we've got a great program over here going.
Well, you had a great spouse too that helped you
Yeah.
with that. You guys operated from the heart. Now, in the beginning at Oshkosh West, you were the only coach there. You didn't have any assistant coaches. How did you handle tryouts? You had 50, 60 kids show up?
We did. I was a paid varsity coach, but we had junior varsity, and it always varied from year to year. Ended up with even some parents sometimes, not too many people knew anything about it, But we kept the kids together. That was the most important thing, and the kids liked playing the sport. So tryouts, what a challenge that was. Like you said, 60, 70 kids being out there, and then you're supposed to pick, 20 kids for your varsity team, and the kids came along real well in the first 5 years as far as playing soccer. It wasn't anymore kicking the ball, how high you can kick it, the passing was coming on. And we established, yes, we took some big hits. First game I'll never forget, against Kimberly. And Kimberly just socked it to us. 8-1 we got hammered, but we did score.
Hey.
But Harry Kelderman, the Nina coach, everybody wants to beat Nina, and nobody could.
It was a very hard thing to do.
Nobody could beat Nina over there. And Harry kind of took it easy. When he gets up his 5, 6 goals, and he pulled all of the starters, you might say, but and it helped, lose 1-0 or 10-0, you still lost.
You still don't get any
Right.
points on the board.
Right.
I just understand that there have been some scholarships in your name through the club and through the high school.
I retired from the high school in 2003. I had 23 years as varsity coach over there. And we always had, just before the season started, an alumni game between the high school kids and the alumni. And in the 2004 alumni game was going on, and Tim Foy was the varsity coach at that time. He brought them over to Schumers over there, and naturally the alumni, you know, they were all hepped up. And I kind of coached them that year. Well, after that game, we had a little get-together, and Tim Foy and some other parents and stuff were going to give Joanne and me tickets to go back to Germany for a trip. Well, we declined that, and I wanted to do something for soccer again, you know. So that's how the scholarship got started for Oshkosh West in my name, and it's still going today.
Awesome.
And then in OYSC, I spent 30+ years as a board member on there. And after I retired from that, they made a scholarship fund in my name at OYSC, which is going today too.
We've been very blessed in Oshkosh to have a guy of your quality and your knowledge of the game. Not only the knowledge of the game of soccer, but also your passion for the kids. You wanted to see them do well. Hey, it was awesome talking to you. We're going to do that again sometime.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Fred.
Pretty damn good.